The doll in the storage room. When I was younger, I'd go visit my grandparents all the time. They lived in a one-floor house with an unfinished basement. I never liked it down there. It felt small for a big basement. There was a little door down there that was for storage, and I always got a horrible feeling when going close to it. And let me add that this was a newer house that was only about 6 years old. Now, during the time I was about 6 or 7, I felt so uncomfortable going down there. Even when I was with someone, I didn't like it. I remember going down there with my grandma to help with something. She had to run upstairs because someone rang the doorbell. She said she would be right back, even though she knew how I felt about being alone down there. But I nodded and said, okay. She was gone and I was alone, and I started to get a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. I didn't move and didn't want to, even though the lights were on now. This is where everything started happening, and it still gives me chills. The lights started to flicker, and I started to hear noises and what sounded like talking, and it was not coming from upstairs, but in the storage room. I heard someone say my name. Here is the part that freaks me out the most. The voice sounded like my grandma. I was confused as hell. How am I hearing her when she is upstairs? I didn't want to move, but me being the curious one I am, I started moving towards the storage room door. The closer I got, the worse the bad feeling came. When I got to the door, the lights turned off in the basement. I wanted to run upstairs and hide, go home somewhere that wasn't the basement. I heard my name again for the second time, my grandma's voice asking me to open the door, to help her. So I did, and I regret it. I couldn't see anything, it was pitch black. I couldn't hear anything but faint laughing. It felt like forever, but then the laughing stopped and the lights turned back on in the basement. I felt a bit better with the lights back on, but the downside, I could see a little in the storage room. I saw a small clown doll in the storage room, and my grandma hates clowns with a passion and wants nothing to do with them. So why is there a clown doll? I have no damn idea. Then the lights turned on in the storage room. I saw red that looked like blood all over the place. I screamed and blacked out, and the next thing I knew I was laying on the couch. My grandma was looking at me and asking if I was okay. I have no idea if that was real or a dream, but it sure as hell felt real. If you have any ideas what this could have been, please let me know. True story. The clowns in 2016 almost killed me. Before I begin, I want to put down some basic facts about my story. I was 13 at the time of this occurrence and have been reading creepypastas and true stories since I was 11. I live in Carroll Island, a place where you can find a good amount of forestry everywhere. This was located in Baltimore County, and I loved hearing Goatman stories about this place. I believe there is one in Carroll Island, but that's not the point. I loved this bit of forestry and always had since I was a child. I had lived in this house, and still am, since I was 7 or 8. These forests, like any other town, always had some urban legend behind them. Some of these were mostly told by older kids who were just trying to scare the kids who would wander about the streets. The teens would always go into the woods to smoke pot, drink alcohol. I hated that, but it's how they got their kicks. I was outside of my house, somewhere near January on a full moon. Can't recall which month perfectly, I just know it was a full moon. This was when some of the clown things were starting to die off and come back in April 2017. I never believed in them and still don't, but that night, I think I did. I walked inside my house with me, my brother, and my friend who we'll call Kyle. Kyle was from the Dominican Republic and had always believed in the paranormal, so we had a good bit in common. We walked into my brother's room, since it was the largest, and we were watching Logan Paul's controversial Suicide Forest video. Once it was done, Kyle remembered it was a full moon and that the clowns were out tonight. I called bullshit and told him it was all hoaxes and insane people on highways. He doubled me by saying that if I didn't believe, they'd get me. I laughed at his remark to that and told him to stop believing all that stuff. That's when my brother, who I'll call Josh, sat up and said that I was just a pussy. I told him he was a jerk and that it wasn't funny. We got into a conversation for a good 10 minutes when Kyle finally says, "Then why don't you go prove it?" I said, "Okay," and told them that I would be back. I know just the place to prove it. There's a little place down the road that was put there for a park essentially. It wasn't funded, the only thing it had was a small walk bridge that was pretty nice. We called it the Duck Pond, but it was actually Seneca Creek. I'm giving all the location details to give you a better understanding of how scary this place would have been at night. I left the house, got onto my bike and rode off 2 blocks away. At the entrance of the park is another set of woods that is private property for houses on the water and some abandoned houses inside. The entrance is easy to see, can't miss it, and personally, it looks pretty. As I was walking up to the entrance, I had noticed a foul odour. Keep in mind that this is wildlife, where things die and decompose right there. It wasn't helped with the stench of trash reeking from Trash Island. I was about to walk into the park when I shit you not, something had spoken in a low, somewhat luring voice.
Hey there, kiddo. Why don't you come over here?
This is when I went into fucking panic mode. I am someone who isn't scared off so easily, but it was the thought that it could be someone out there, the unknown, which scared me. I turn towards a small patch of bushes near the entrance and I see something crouched over deep in the bushes, facing me. I couldn't tell if it was a clown or a demon. I didn't fucking care at this point. Even thinking about it is making me paranoid. As I was going to man up and go over there and see what it was, it speaks again.
That's right, come over here.
And I hear the sheathing of a blade. That's when I knew it was time to book it. I instantly wailed out in fright, almost pissing myself, and crashed into that bike. I say if I hadn't been riding for many years and built up the muscle power to power out of there, I would have been done. I floor it back to my house. At this point, my body is in complete hysteria, and Carl said that once I opened the door, I was not comprehensible. It took me a minute to calm down and realise I shouldn't be so scared. I explained to Carl and Josh what had just happened, and we agreed to go back tomorrow and fuck up whoever was there. We never did, and I never go there at night. Creepy man in the fucking bushes, whoever you are, if you're still out there, let's not meet again. The clown on the walk. I live in a town that is fairly safe aside from college students. I always feel comfortable walking places alone, until one walk. It was during that clown craze, which I thought was fake, until they said they were coming to a school in my town. They were in my town, but not at the school. I was walking to our lane library to play games, because I have no games consoles or computers at home. There was a small open spot of land right next to the library, and I was there. I looked across the street at the same time as a person looked at me. But they were dressed as a clown. My worst nightmare. It held a machete and turned its head and started laughing. I was horrified. I started running across the street. All I could do was try to run. I was a short 11-year-old, only 4'10". The clown seemed to be around 6'3" and fast. While it ran, it laughed. After a little, I was so scared I couldn't scream. I just ran. Ran to the library and hoped it would leave. When I got inside, I looked out the big window. It was standing with its head sideways, waving his machete. If it weren't for me having played soccer, I would probably never have survived to turn 14. I've never told anybody about this.